The flocks of green potato stalks, where blossom spread for sudden flight, cares pink in a frivoled blue, the Aran banners wearing white, and over the potato field, a lazy veil of woven sun, dandelions growing on headlands, showing their unloved hearts to everyone. That's from Patrick Kavanagh spraying the potatoes. People are surprised when they come to this garden in that they almost think of it as an ornamental garden because of the way it's laid out, its aesthetics, its scale, its form. But in fact it's a productive garden. It's actually very pragmatic. In creating a place like this, that's what it is, it's place making. You're creating an atmosphere, but people also inhabit that space and they contribute to that atmosphere, you know. It's not something you can force. And that's part of the, I suppose, subtext to this. It's sort of empowering, it's allowing people to colonise it and make it their own. In essence, the actual forms here, they've been evolving over about 6 or 7 years through these projects that I've been driving with the Woodcollective Meitheal Adhmaid, which is a collaborative project where people of different disciplines come together, different backgrounds, craft, art, design, electricians, builders, there's foresters, there's been all sorts of people who've contributed in different ways and in very innovative ways. It's about creativity, I suppose there's the word praxis, you know, it's about learning by doing. And what's amazing about this is you might have the thread of an idea, you know, the bones of something on the back of a cigarette box, then you start to actually iterate it and layer it and build it up. And when people become involved, it's amazing what they bring to a project in terms of just the turn, the sleight of hand. And that's a very satisfying aspect to this.
Myself and Eugene had many discussions about how best to use the space and where stuff should go, what plants should go where. And in the courtyard area we have a herb wheel, which is an excellent way of growing the herbs. You can walk easily through it to pick the various herbs without having to put on your outdoor shoes to go into the garden. Most of the plants here were grown in my garden at home, mainly by my wife Louise, who was looking after the garden while I was out working. So as you can see, there's a vast array of plants here. There's over 600 individual plants in this garden, and they've all been cared for and nurtured, watered almost daily and transplanted along the way just to keep them healthy looking like what you see here today.
As you enter the garden, you're presented with this very solid, sinuous wall. And it's deliberately solid. It's about creating a sense of mystery of what's over the wall. And as you move through, you're kind of guided. You're not forced in this kind of winding path. And then you become slightly enclosed with these timber slatted structures, and they have a certain, you know, quality about them. So you kind of have a transition from solid into space. So you have a sense of enclosure then, and effectively then you move through the next layer. You have a social space here in the centre. You know, this is very much about conversation. You know, it's a very sociable, soft space. You're sheltered. I mean, you can see it here. It's transparent and yet you feel enclosed. You know, and this is about eating, enjoying the produce of the garden. You know, it's about fun. But then as you move through into the next layer of the garden, there's kind of a labyrinth of these raised beds. They're at different heights deliberately. It's about access for all, about working, the practical thing of working and what's involved in working. But also in terms of the public engagement here, it's very, I suppose, understandable. It's presented in a visual way. It's like an amphitheatre of planting, if you like, and you weave your way through that. And then to the back of the scheme is the secret place, which is the gardener's room. And that is the engine room. It's an interpretive educational space. It's like a stage set, really. There you have the potting shed, you have the tools. It makes visible the process as well, the practical realities of everyday work. And I suppose most importantly, you have the fertiliser, the compost, which is well, that's about returning organic matter to the soil. And the soil is really underlying, is the foundation of this scheme. It's very much about the soil. And then the other aspect then is the wood, which encloses the scheme and creates shelter and a microclimate. And it's been very interesting, people's reaction to this. You know, they're intrigued and drawn in, which was really the idea of the garden, which was to engage. It's like a stage set in a way. You know, you've got your proscenium, but you've got the wings, you know, and then you have the audience. In some ways, the planting is the audience as well, you know, it's except it's being viewed. In terms of the contributors to the project, you know, there have been many. I worked on this with Carol Melody, who's a horticulturist from UCD, and she's doing a PhD in soil science. A lot of the ideas in this scheme have come from her, and they've been evolved and developed. Also, there's been interagency support from the Wood Marketing Federation and their members, and the Department of Agriculture, which is a very important aspect in terms of outreach and credibility. And it's something, you know, we'd like to develop further in new and interesting ways and in different mediums, you know. So I suppose looking forward, I see this as it's an educational tool. I'd like to become an educator and work with educators, but also to create spaces for people in new ways, and in a sense as well, it's about telling stories.